Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Godly Play. This week, our lesson is King David. So we will learn a little bit about King David, but before we get started, let's sing our song. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Are you ready for our story? I hope so. Story of King David. In the city of Bethlehem, where Ruth had lived, Jesse made his home. Jesse was the grandson of Ruth, and he had many sons. One day, Samuel came to Bethlehem in search of a new king. Samuel came to the house of Jesse because he had so many sons, and God had told him that one of them was going to be king. After Samuel looked at all of Jesse's sons, he said, "Are there any others? Because none of these are going to be king." And Jesse said, "Yes, there's one more, but he's young, and he's out in the fields tending the sheep." Once Samuel got a look at the final son of Jesse, he said, "Yes, he is going to be king." So he took oil and he poured it over Jesse's head and blessed him. The oil was just a way. It smells good. For them to show God's blessing on David. The problem was there already was a king in the land, and his name was Saul. And he had been a good ruler, but he had changed. And there was a demon just harassing him and tormenting him. But still, David would not be king until Saul died. Saul's sickness became worse, and someone suggested that the king listen to music. So they called up David, the shepherd boy, to play music for King Saul and write poems and read those. Some of David's songs are now in the book of Psalms. One of our readings today is Psalm 23, which was written by David. While David was still a young boy, there was a great war in the land. The Philistines were fighting against the army. The Philistines wanted the land for themselves, and the army of the people of God and the army of the Philistines were armed and ready to fight. A very tall man named Goliath came out and challenged the people of God to a fight. And everyone was afraid of him because he was very large. But David said he would fight them. So they tried to put the king's armor on David, and it was way too heavy and way too large. So David threw it aside and went out to fight Goliath with just his slingshot and his stones. 1, 2, 3. David knew that he had killed bear and lion to defend the sheep and to protect them. So he thought that he could be successful in killing one man to protect the people of God. And he did. The people never forgot David's bravery, and when he grew up, he became a soldier in the army of the king. Two people of God to represent our soldiers. King Saul had many sons, and one of them was named Jonathan. Jonathan and David became very good friends. And even when the king got mad at David, Jonathan stood up for him and protected him. But as King Saul's illness got worse, David was in much more danger because the king was very jealous of him. So Jonathan told David that he had to run away and hide from the king to be safe. So the friends parted ways. David was moving through the land with his army when a messenger came and told him that King Saul and his sons had been killed in battle. David was sad to learn of his friend's death. But he never forgot his good friend Jonathan. He even brought his son to eat with him at his table, and he gave him the land that had been King Saul's. It is time for David to be king. The young man brought David the king's crown. All the tribes of Israel came to Hebron and made him king, saying, "You shall be shepherd of all of the people." At the time he was 30 years old, and he would be king for 40 more. One of the things David did was go to the city of Jerusalem and take it from the Jebusites. So now there was a city of David in Bethlehem and a city of David in Jerusalem. Then the king remembered that that the ark had been lost to the Philistines. He led his army against the Philistines and defeated them. And they went to get the ark, and they brought it back. And they put it in the tent, and King David danced around in front of it. David wanted to build a house for God, but God said, "No, you are a king of wars. Your son will build a temple." In the spring of the year, the time came when kings would go to war. David sent his army away to fight in battle, but he remained in Jerusalem. One day, he saw Bathsheba on her balcony. She was Uriah the Hittite's wife. King David wanted to marry her very badly, so he sent Uriah into battle, where he was killed. And then King David took her for his wife. Soon after, God sent Nathan, a prophet, to David. And Nathan told King David this parable. A rich man and a poor man lived in the same town. The rich man had many sheep. The rich man had many sheep. And the poor man had one. The poor man treated the sheep as if it were his child. It ate off of his plate, drank out of his water glass, it even slept on his lap. One day visitors came to visit the rich man, and he didn't want to kill one of his own sheep to feed the visitors, so he came to the poor man's house and took his sheep and served that instead. When David heard this story, he was angry, and he said that the rich man needed to pay back fourfold to the poor man the cost of the sheep. Nathan scolded David and said, "You are the rich man. You took Bathsheba, Uriah's wife." Bathsheba and David felt very sad, and David wondered if he would die like King Saul. But he did not die. But the first child born of King David and Bathsheba did die, and they were sad. But their second son lived, and his name was Solomon. When King David was very old and full of years, he died and was buried in the temple in Jerusalem. His son Solomon continued to rule over his kingdom and built the temple. I wonder what part of the story you like the best. Could it be that the temple in Jerusalem got rebuilt? Could it be the parable? The rich man with many sheep, the poor man with just one? Could it be finding the ark? Or when King David was made a king? Or Jonathan and David as friends? Maybe it was King David killing Goliath with the smooth stones and his slingshot. Maybe it was David's ministry to King Saul with his music and writing of poems and what are now currently a lot of our psalms that we read on Sunday mornings. Or maybe it was the nice-smelling blessing oil that Samuel blessed David with when he found him and announced that he would be the next king. I wonder what part of the story is most important. I wonder what part of the story is about you. Or the part of the story that you're in. I wonder if we could leave out any part of this story and still have the same story. I don't know. These are great questions to talk with your family about. I hope that you and your family have a blessed week. I hope the weather holds out and we don't have any more storms. And I'll see you back here next week. Bye.